From Screen to Shelf. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of From Screen to Shelf. And on today's episode, we're going to be going back in time to the year 2008 to talk about, I consider it probably one of the greatest comedy movies I think I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And from that time period, it's probably the movie that, remembering back, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in a theater in a long time. There's like a few movies that come to mind when I think about that, but we're going to be talking about Tropic Thunder, the 2008 film, written and directed by Ben Stiller. I believe it was co-written. It was Ben Stiller and two other writers.
Yeah.
But directed by Ben Stiller, all-star cast, which I think they knocked it out of the park with. We're going to get into all that, though. But before we do, I think it might be a good way to start off just to talk about what we remember most about like the initial run of this movie, like seeing it in the theater for the first time. I don't know if you guys saw it in the theater when it was out, but I kind of remember that summer, and I think we were talking about it before we rolled, but The Dark Knight also came out that same year.
Yeah, man. It was like a super packed summer. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
We were talking about Dark Knight. I think Indiana Jones came out the same year. There was just like a whole bunch of movies coming out at this time, but yeah, man. I mean, I had the same experience you did. Well, when I saw this movie, man, it's just I had not laughed in a movie like that hard. I went to go see it theatrically when it came out, and I just don't remember laughing that hard at a movie in a long time. Maybe since like maybe the early 2000s. Like, I mean, there were a lot of like early 2000s comedies that I thought were hilarious, especially like Scary Movie when I was younger. Like, I thought those movies were hilarious, but it had been a while since there was like a good comedy that came out. And I think this movie was like a blessing and a curse because it was one of the best comedies of that time. But also, like, I haven't laughed like that hard in a film since Tropic Thunder's come out. And that's crazy to say because it's been probably 16 years. And I can't personally think of a comedy in the past like 16 years that has made me laugh as hard as Tropic Thunder has.
Yeah. That's an interesting point.
Yeah. I unless you guys can think of one, I can't. I really
I don't
can't.
know. Chase, what do you, I mean, that's the thing. Like, and here's the thing about that movie. And I think this is one of the reasons we initially talked about or discussed this particular movie and why we wanted to do this episode and talk about it, because it seems to be one of those movies that people not only reference a lot, but when you talk to people about like comedy movies, like people in my age group, like my friends, I'm in my 30s, but everybody says the same thing. Like, yeah, Tropic Thunder, like I watched it again on TV or watched it again last year and it blew me away, like how funny it still is, And I think there's something to be said for that, but it's funny, Gabe, because like I hear a lot of people, or you tend to hear that when it relates to this movie about how it was just one of the funniest movies that people remember seeing in a long time.
Yeah,
and it's kind of weird. I mean, yeah, but I mean, even after this movie came out, I don't, like you guys said, I don't think I've seen a movie since that's made me laugh as much as this movie, And I watched it again. Kino Lorber released this on 4K UHD. So, they granted us the gift of Tropic Thunder on 4K. But yeah, watching it again on 4K, and not only was it great to watch it again and watch that restoration, but holy shit, man, like it's like I forgot like how funny the movie actually was. Like I remember it being really good and really funny, and then watching it again, I'm like, holy shit, like this actually holds up incredibly well.
Yeah.
But I just forgot how just like not only, I mean, it's controversial for obvious reasons, and we'll get into that, a little later in the discussion, but it's just like there's just some raunchy stuff in this movie
Mhm.
that I forgot about, and then, like, experiencing that again was just funny. It was just a treat, man. Like, this movie it's you know what I think it is? It's so well written, like, the interactions between the characters, and I feel like that's really fleshed out in this film.
Mhm.
So you're kinda on this journey with them, and we can talk about the plot and the story a little bit too if you guys wanna get into that just to kinda rehash everything, but getting back to circling back to what you were saying, yeah, it seems to be one of those movies that just stands the test of time in that regard, where people watch it again and it's just as funny, if not more funny now than it was even then, looking back,
Mhm.
and also kind of looking at the current landscape. Because I was going to say, like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't even know what other comedy movies have come out that have had, I guess we could say, the kind of impact that this movie had, at least at the time, and it came out in a year that was pretty stacked. Like you said, Dark Knight, I
Yeah.
think we talked about Iron Man being released that year as well.
Oh, yeah, that
There were a
was the
lot
other
of big
one,
movies that it
2008.
it it was not up against, but in the company of, so to speak, for
Well, I
that
mean, that's
year.
a good
So,
point in the sense, like, it came out in a stacked year, and it's still I remember it just kind of it was taking everything by storm, dude. I mean, it was, like, literally, like, everyone that I remember talking to friends who weren't even, like, film fanatics or just, film buffs in general, just like, the casual movie-going audience, and they're like, "You need to go watch Tropic Thunder." And they're like,
mm,
"It's hilarious." And I think that this movie is funnier in a way too, even if you are, like, a film buff or just like appreciate Hollywood and the history of Hollywood and the current state of Hollywood because you could laugh at a lot of like the parody and the hypocrisy of it all and
mm,
it's a good time in that sense. But I just remember that even in a stacked year, this was just a super popular movie. Like everyone was loving it. Everyone was going to go see it. Robert Downey Jr. Obviously, I think this is why he had a stellar year. I mean, he had Iron Man, and then he had this movie, which back to back was just
mm,
it kind of resparked his career. But it
yeah,
was just impressive in the sense that you had an all-star cast. But I think at least for me, what stood out with this movie, I know we're gonna get into the plot and everything. I think the thing that stood out the most was like it looked like everyone was just having a really good time. It didn't feel
mm,
like everyone was there for like a paycheck in a way. You know what I mean? It just felt like everyone was like, let's just make a funny movie. And
yeah,
considering that these guys, especially maybe like Robert Downey Jr. and Ben Stiller, they've been in Hollywood for so long, it's like let's just make fun of ourselves and the shit
yeah,
that we go through as actors. You know what I mean? I think that they just had a real good time doing that. And I guess we could start with the beginning of the movie because the beginning of the movie, there's no plot; it's just movie trailers. You
yeah,
get these like
yeah,
these like I think
yeah,
it's like 3 or 4 like movie trailers, right? And I remember seeing that in theaters and I was like, "What the hell's going on?" Like you just got your regular movie trailers and then the movie started and then it was like more movie trailers and everyone was like confused in a way but like laughing too. It was kind of an odd way to start the movie, but I mean like 2020 hindsight, it's just kind of genius in a way the way they started this
yeah.
movie.
Do we remember what the I think one of them was like, so it's Ben Stiller's name in the movie. I think you said it, Gabe. It was Tug Speedman is
Yeah,
his
Tux
character's
Speedman.
name.
I think it's his like 10th
Um,
action movie or something. Like it's like
Yeah,
that's the first one that starts it
it
off.
was, something with, like, fire, Scorcher, I
Again.
think, was the
Yeah.
name of the movie, like, Scorcher 7 or something like that,
Mhm.
and that's the thing, I love how they, like, again, this whole movie is a, satirical, play on, Hollywood and movie making, and, honestly, we can get into the stereotypes 'cause they hit every nail on the head so perfectly when it comes to, like,
Mhm.
the manifestations of these industry types, like with Tom Cruise's character, which we'll talk about. But I love that it's like, it's like the seventh film or whatever number it was just tacked onto the end in the trailer. It's like something
Yeah.
we're so used
I
to
think even the
seeing with,
subtitle was like, "Again, again," or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but it was just like and I mean, it's still I think that's why this movie's genius too, like, those jokes, even 16 years later, still hold up because how many, like,
Mm.
freaking action sequels have we had? Like, I think we just had another one of those, like, which one was it? Was it the Expendables? Didn't they do another Expendables recently or another one with the Jason Statham
Well,
or whatever?
Fast and Furious, they do one, like, what are
Yeah,
we
they do
on?
one
Like,
every freaking
I
year,
think
like
it's the
the
10th
10th
film,
one.
right?
I mean,
You
yeah, so,
know?
like, a lot of this stuff, like, still resonates, so, like, even though it's 16 years old, it's like, yeah, that they played that perfectly. It's like, these action movies
Mm,
come out and there's, like, 12, 14 sequels, and it's funny at
yeah.
some point, you know what I mean? And I think the next one was the Blackjack, like, farting family or something like that.
Oh my god. Yeah.
If I remember it correctly, I think it was just it was, like, just those stupid, like, comedy movies that you see a trailer for that you're like, "I'm not gonna see that shit." but like they
Yeah,
did
right.
the trailer like that on purpose. It's like no one's gonna watch this movie, but these are the movies that people are going to go see, and they're making
I
money, and they're just like laughably bad.
I'm remembering the one with, it's Robert Downey Jr.'s character
Oh, that's my
as
favorite
the
one.
actor, and, what's his name?
Tobey
Tobey
Maguire.
Maguire. Do you guys remember that
Yeah,
one?
the
It's like they're
monks.
both like monks.
Yeah, it's like
It's
Brokeback
just
Mountains, but
so
with like
yeah,
monks.
with monks.
And they're like holding
That's so
like the beads, like he's like reaching over, like touching his beads like real slowly, and he's like like getting excited, and it's like, what the hell, dude? And it's like,
like,
but
just this
they
subtext.
crafted that like really funny too, because it's like it's crafted almost like an Academy Award winning like drama movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he won, like he was
Yeah.
nominated for it or something.
And it's like, dude,
Oh,
but
man.
that's how those trailers are, like for Academy Award winning movies. That's how comedies are. That's how action movies are. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
another trailer. It's hard to remember because it's been a little while since I've seen this, but I think those were the three main trailers.
But that, like you said, what a way to kick like, and that's the thing, like, it's movies like this, like, we talk about, like, certain movies being made for theaters,
Mhm.
I just remember the reactions to that. Like, just
Oh
it
yeah.
opens with these trailers, and everyone's like, firstly, like, "Okay, well, wait, what the hell is this?" And then everyone's just, like, dying, like, immediately setting the tone, you know? It
Mhm.
immediately sets the tone for the kind of movie that we're gonna get, and, I love that. Like, I just love how it kinda just builds that momentum almost instantly, and you're then kinda thrown into this world, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? And I
I
think that's a
love that.
perfect way to like set that template up because you know what kind of world this is immediately. That this is
Yeah.
just going to be some fucked up like just parody of Hollywood
It's
itself. Because that
so
was the thing
funny.
when this came out was like the trailers were kind of like you don't know what it's really about. I mean, it looked like a parody, it looked like a comedy, but like
Mm,
no one really knew what this was about. And I think that when that movie started, you were like, okay, now I know what I'm getting myself into a little bit. And
right.
you know, going into the plot, I think so. We have like Ben Stiller who plays Tug. Is it Speedman, right? I think that's his name.
Tug
Yeah, Tug
Speedman is
Speedman.
Ben Stiller's character, and he's
Yeah,
like you were saying, he's I don't know, this is like however he's trying to like he's at that moment in his career where he's trying to get a hit, right? I think his
yeah, or
career's kind of
reinvigorate
been
his career because he had Simple
right.
Jack, I guess, right?
Simple
That
Jack,
was
which
yeah.
apparently, like, bombed, you know, it was like
Oh, okay,
like,
yeah, he did bomb, my bad, yeah. It
um,
bombed.
I get from what I'm remembering, like, I remember that being the story, and he's trying to get back on, you know, he's trying to get back on the horse, he's trying to get back in the limelight, like you said, reinvigorate his career, and, you know, he ends up getting or they end up getting assigned to this war movie,
Mhm.
being directed by I forget the actor's name, but his character in the it's so funny, like, I don't remember the actor's name, but I remember his character's name. It's, Damien Cockburn is the director's name
Yeah,
in the
Damien,
movie.
yeah.
Um, and so it's this cast of characters, Ben Stiller as Tug Speedman. You have Damien Cockburn directing. Jack Black. Can you guys I don't remember Jack Black's character.
Jeff Portnoy,
Uh,
he was a drug addict.
okay.
He was a drug
Because
addict
there's Al
celebrity, the
Pacino,
Al
right?
Pacino's the rapper, yeah.
And then, the other gentleman who plays, what is it, Sandusky?
Oh, yeah, Sandusky. He is like the, I forget the actor's name, Jay something.
I've
I
seen
forget
him
his
in a
name.
lot of movies. I just
Yeah,
always forget his name.
very recognizable face, but he plays, Sandusky. He's the mediator of the group. He's like the calm head. He's like, you know, he's the only, like, rational person in this intense group of personalities.
Okay.
Um, and then we had I'm trying to remember who else was there. We obviously Robert Downey Jr. is Kirk Lazarus, and so he's an Australian actor. I got the
Mhm.
Mm,
vibe they were like just doing a parody on Russell Crowe at the
mm.
time. I don't remember, but it was like an Australian actor, kind of just like really like serious about his craft. He was like
It's
a
very like, what's the word? He's it I think it's like a big play on, like, method acting, I think. I
yeah,
feel like.
pretty much almost
I
like
mean
Daniel Day-Lewis kind of deal.
yeah, well, if you guys think about this, like, even the name Kirk Lazarus, like, I feel like and I think it touches on this in the movie, like, slightly, where it's like every role he takes on, he, like, completely reinvents himself.
Yeah,
Like, you know, he like,
for the
lives the
duration of
part.
shooting.
Yeah, so I kinda like how the names of these characters in some way, shape, or form kind of represent, like, who they are as people, if that makes sense. Like Tom
Yeah.
Cruise's character, I think, is the most obvious one, like Les Grossman,
Yeah.
Being the studio executive. But I think like Robert Downey Jr.'s character's name, like Kirk Lazarus, like Lazarus being, in what's the word I'm looking for? The story of Lazarus is that he's
Like the
resurrected
Lazarus
from what I
pit.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And I mean, the
kind of plays
crazy
into
thing,
that whole dynamic.
and I mean, you have all these, these intense personalities, and all of them in a way. Like, I mean, it's not just, I'm reflecting back on the movie. It's not just Ben Stiller, but like a lot of them are trying to kind of reinvigorate their careers. I remember like Al Pacino's trying to sell like his like what is it, booty sweat? I think this is like this is like the drink he's trying to sell, and like he's trying to sell his like rap albums, and then like the other dude's like just Jack Black's just trying to cash more checks for comedy movies because he's trying to get more money for drugs. Like a lot of them in a way are just focusing on like reinvigorating themselves in a way just to get more money. Um, and I think you have Robert Downey Jr., who's I think he had gotten like pigment surgery or something. Like he didn't just like do blackface. I think he had like I remember the scene where they said like he'd done some controversial like pigmentation surgery to actually like make himself black. Like yeah, I remember that scene in the movie. But like yeah, dude. So you have these intense personalities, and like Ben Stiller is really just trying to obviously reinvigorate his career, and I think it's through this movie, which I think the movie they're shooting is actually called Tropic Thunder, right? It's written by Forley, if I remember correctly. He's the veteran who supposedly wrote this book about
Nick.
his yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot about him, dude.
Nick
Nick
Nolte.
Nolte.
Yeah, Nick Nolte.
Yeah. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
he's this veteran that wrote this book, I think Tropic Thunder, that's he sold the rights to it, and they're filming it into a movie. And the first scene of the movie, dude, it's like, I mean, again, setting the tone. You have this big budget scene, like millions of dollars, explosions going off, helicopters flying everywhere, and like I forget what was it. It was like Ben Stiller getting shot like 100 times, and like Robert Downey Jr. is like screaming like, please survive, survive, and he's getting shot like 100 times. And like I think the explosions go off in the wrong order. There's a dude hanging out from a helicopter, and the director's like, cut, like we have to do this shit again. And Les Grossman gets pissed off. He's giving them pressure, saying you got to film this movie under budget by this deadline. And then Four Leaf comes up with the idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, Will, because you've seen it, I think, more recently than I have. He's like, we're gonna drop these fuckers in the jungle, pretty much. Like, let's get raw footage of these dudes in the jungle, and
I don't know if
let's
he
take
calls
that
them
angle.
pansies or something. They're like, let's fucking really put these guys to the test and just throw them in the jungle and actually record this, and film this. Film their real time reactions to these situations that they're thrown in.
Doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make any fucking sense, but it's so funny, man. And I don't know if you guys want to talk about the scene that you're talking about. I think it's the scene I'm remembering where it's that big flyby. Like it's reminiscent, I think, of, I don't know if it's Apocalypse Now. There's also some obviously Platoon references in there with him getting shot.
Yeah, Apocalypse Now, and also what's the Kubrick movie? Oh my god, we've done like 2 videos on it
I know,
already.
we just talked about it.
Talking about his army movie?
Yeah,
Full Metal Jacket?
Full Metal Jacket. Yeah,
Full Metal
that's
Jacket.
one too. Yeah, with
or something.
The overshot with the helicopter and everything. And I think what's the dude from he's the explosion guy. What's his name? I forget. He's in this movie too.
Danny McBride is the special effects guy.
He sets off the explosions like at the wrong time or something.
It's so funny, and it's so funny. Like, I want to quote that, like, or talk about that for a second, because, like, again, like, it's a testament to like the writing of this movie, because they really nailed like the stereotypes so well. Like Danny McBride is like this forsaken special effects guy, and I think he actually makes a comment in the movie like he can no longer work in the US like due to like an accident. So like he doesn't even have a license. It's just the only reason he's on this job is because it's overseas in the jungle and he's allowed to get away with the shit. And it's just so funny. But I mean, even that, like his little cameo is so fun to watch, with the, like you said, it's like they time the explosion wrong, or it's something happens with the signal where he's working with the 2 dudes in the tower.
Yeah.
And the director gets mad and like throws his clipboard down on the ground.
Oh, he thought that was the signal pretty much when the director's like wailing around, pissed off. He's like, all right, that's the signal. And he's like,
that's the signal, hit it. And he fucking, the the flyby comes in and they
that was like the cherry on top, right? Because there's
explosions
so much that went wrong already, and the director's already pissed, like kicking shit.
leading up to that.
And then like the cherry on top is like, yeah, let's fucking waste all these explosions. Like he's like, let's go, and it's just this huge napalm explosion that probably cost them millions of dollars to set up. But it's just a dude, yeah. That opening sequence is just so funny, and I mean the plot makes no sense, like we just talked about. I mean, going into the jungle, let's shoot it for real. It's so dumb, but it's like it's so dumb that it's funny because literally, and they drop into the jungle, and then the director, he's already gone because he steps on a landmine, like a real landmine, right? Because they're in, I forget where they are.
Right when they get there, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what country. Are they in Vietnam? I forgot where they're at when they're filming this.
I thought they were in Vietnam. Let's pull that up real quick because I was trying to remember where they actually are.
It says they're dropped in the middle. Yeah, they're in the Golden Triangle, near Thailand, Laos, and the Mekong River. So I don't know. It doesn't specify exactly where they're dropped, but it's kind of like that. It's kind of like you're in Vietnam, just getting dropped in randomly. And yeah, I mean, the director, he steps out of the helicopter. He's like, we're going to shoot this shit for real. And, he takes a step and then a landmine goes off. And then the actors, like, this is how stupid it is. Like, the actors are like, they're like, is this for real? Like, there's this like, what do you say? Is this like special effects or like touching or whatever?
Yeah. Yep.
And it just sets that tone, man, where it's like, oh, okay, this is going to be some fucking crazy shit going down. And I know, we'll talk about the plot as it kind of progresses, but I think we need to address the Robert Downey Jr. thing because that's like the biggest thing I think people talk about. Because I mean, he was nominated for, I think, what was it, like Best Supporting Actor? It was the same year he was nominated against like Heath Ledger for the Joker. And there are people talking about that if Heath didn't win that, Robert Downey Jr. would have won for this movie. I have to admit that he's the funniest part of this whole movie.
Yeah,
and I'm not ashamed to say it. He completely like transforms himself. And it's just, in my opinion, it's just solid acting. He's just a really, really good actor, and I could tell that everyone was just having a fun time. You had the actor who played Al Pacino too. I was watching an interview with him recently, and they were asking about the Robert Downey Jr. thing, and they're like, he's playing like a better black man than I am. And I'm like, dude, like you could just tell that they're all super chill. They're all having a really good time with this movie, and they weren't stressing about a lot of like what people are going to think about it.
Yeah, just get it made.
Yeah, it's like, let's just get it made. Let's just have fun, and then we'll kind of, worry about stuff later. But obviously, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is just he gives one of the funniest performances I've seen in a long, long time. I forget it's Robert Downey Jr. sometimes when you're watching that movie, dude. It's crazy. Like, just and I hate saying this, I think it's probably one of his best performances. It sounds so fucked up to say, but it's true, because I like, really, when you look at him like that, I don't see Robert Downey Jr. He's like completely lost himself in this like stupid character that he's made up.
Well, if you think about it, there's a lot of layers to it, to be honest, because I'm like thinking about it as you're talking, and when you think about who he's playing an actor who is playing an African American character, but the actor that he's playing in the film is pretty much playing this character using all of like the worst stereotypes that he knows, right?
Yeah.
Like as the actor. Right. So if you think about it, it's it's just so crazy how
he's playing almost like two actors, right? Because he's playing the Australian guy too, that kind of leaks out sometimes. Yeah, that he's like, I'm knowingly this Australian dude that's playing the black dude. And I think there's a line in the movie, he's like, I'm the dude playing the dude disguised as the other dude.
Disguised as another dude.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, but that's the truth. And I think that's why it's so funny. It's like, that's verbatim the truth of what's going on with this situation. But I mean, I had a blast with this character, man. I think it's so funny. It's so over the top. And I think, near the end of it, doesn't he kind of strips the method acting thing, and then he just kind of learns to become himself or something like that. That's kind of what happens near the end.
Yeah, he finds himself again.
Yeah. He doesn't have to stop acting as these other people. Yeah, something like that. But I don't know if you guys had more about the Robert Downey Jr. thing. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think he's honestly one of the funniest parts of the movie. Some people have different opinions, but I think he did a great job with that performance.
Yeah, no, that part was fantastic. I also want to give a shout out to Ben Stiller's character, because as you like we're progressing through the story, whenever they get to the little village and he like essentially starts raising his son, I needed to shout out because like I laughed so hard at this part in the movie, and I can genuinely say it's the funniest scene in the movie ever. I've never laughed this hard at anything in my life. But as he's progressing and like, he's like he wants to stay back whenever they're all trying to escape. He's like, no, I've chosen the path of like raising my son.
Yeah.
And then he starts deciding to leave, and they're all on the other side of the bridge, and then the son starts attacking him, and like I don't remember if he's stabbing him in the back.
He's like stabbing with like a little knife or
he's on
something.
his back
little
with the
tiny
knife.
ass knife, and then he just turns to the side of the bridge and fucking throws the kid.
Throws the kid off. Yeah,
so funny.
Oh
I genuinely can tell you I can't really remember much after that because I've never cried tears like that ever. Because I wasn't expecting it, because he's like, no, go without me. I'm gonna stay here. And then all of a sudden he's yeeting him right off the side of the bridge. And it's great. Ben Stiller's character is really good in this, and especially during that third act. It's really, really, it really is one of, if not the funniest movies ever. But it definitely has the funniest scene in a movie I've ever seen in my entire life. That scene is great.
Sure. Yeah. And we can't forget, they're going through the jungle, obviously, like personalities collide and they get into a whole bunch of shit. They lose their map or whatever. And they eventually split ways. Like you said, Ben Stiller ends up with like the rural village they notice him as Special Jack. That's what it was, right? They noticed that he was the actor.
Oh yeah.
And they make him perform it over and over and over again. And I think during that scene, that's when Robert Downey Jr. gets up to him and notices like he's like completely like he's like, I'm staying here and I'm not leaving, and they're like, what happened to him? He's like, he went full retard or something like that. So they have the whole conversation about like the whole like conversation about like how deep do you go into a character. It's like you don't go like you don't go too full retard. He's like, you don't go too little. He's like, you just enough. And they ask him like, what happened to him? He's like, yeah, he went full retard. Something like that. It's so dumb, dude. But I mean, they end up in this whole, I mean, that's the whole climax of the movie, right? Is when they all come back together after being lost, and they pick up Ben Stiller's character, and we can't forget Matthew McConaughey's character because he's the one who saves the day with the TiVo thing that he's like obsessed. Like I think that's his like whole goal during the whole movie, right? He's just getting him TiVo.
Juggernauts. What was it? The scene at the end where they shoot the rocket and he throws the fucking
he saves like their life. Box. He throws the TiVo box and like the TiVo box like blocks the rocket blast. But like throughout the whole movie, this is the thing. It's like Ben Stiller's like, I think I'm trying to remember. He's like telling him like, we're out here in the jungle. We don't know what the hell's going on. And he's like, but do you have TiVo? He's like, it was in your contract. You would have TiVo. He's like, no, I don't have fucking TiVo. And like his whole mission throughout the whole movie is just to get him freaking TiVo, which is like it's stupid. And that's when we're introduced to Tom Cruise's character, which is oh my god, I'm blanking out. You just said his name.
Les Grossman.
Grossman.
I gotta say, I like when I saw Tom Cruise, when I realized it was Tom Cruise, like he's another one that I think just gives an absolutely amazing performance. I wish he would do more comedies, or at least I wish he did more comedies, because he really does. He has some of the funniest, most quotable lines in the movie, obviously, as the studio executive, especially when he's like negotiating, or we shouldn't say negotiating, because as we know, we don't negotiate with terrorists, as he says in the movie. But he has some of the funniest lines of dialogue. And it's just, again, it's so stereotypical. It's like the typical, this like hot-headed, incredibly greedy studio executive. It's like he's always just thinking about money and the bottom line, and it just doesn't give a fuck about anybody else, But he just, dude, he does it so well. It's like so believable,
I think that scene you're talking about, they're trying to negotiate for Ben Stiller's character, right? And he's like, he's like, you
once
guys
they
just
figure out he's
off.
captured.
He's like, you guys can just fuck off. And then he hangs up the phone. He's like, we're just gonna cash on his like life insurance plan or something like that, or whatever it is. Like, and it's like, what the hell, man?
Oh my god,
I mean, it's just it gets into all that greedy territory that Hollywood is known for. But I'm trying to think if there's any other crazy characters that come into play with this movie, dude. I mean, those are the main ones. I mean, Jack Black's character is pretty funny throughout too. He's just like he's just intermittently craving drugs throughout the the whole movie. I know he does some I can't remember though. There was a scene he did some stupid shit for some drugs.
He does some I think it's when they're in the camp. when they're in the
Oh yeah, because
like the
they're like
gorilla camp.
isn't it like a cocaine plant or like
It's
a
a
poppy plant or
cocaine
something like
plant, and he like stumbles on into the room where there's just like mounds of it,
that?
and his face just fucking lights up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
dude, stuff like that, and like Jack Black, I think is like again. I mean, we could talk about the casting for this movie, guys, because I think the casting, like they nailed it with this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like each one of these actors, they just play the characters so well. Like just Jack Black. I mean, he's Jack Black is he's like a very physical performer too. Like I
Mhm.
think a lot of the comedy comes from he's a very physical actor. Like there's a lot of physicality
Yeah.
to his comedy and his routine, which I think was perfect for what did you say his name was in the movie? It was
His
he's the only
name
one that I have
is
trouble remembering for some reason,
I
like his
just said it
name.
before rolling or at the beginning. Jeff Portnoy.
Jeff
I just
Portnoy.
found it here
Yeah.
on Wikipedia. Yeah.
But he
He's
kills
just
it.
he's yeah, he's known. I guess the Fats is what that franchise was, that comedy franchise that he's a part of.
The
The Fats,
Fats.
where everyone's just farting, and yeah, it's like a big old fat family where he's
So
playing like
stupid.
it was almost a play on Mike Myers. It was like Jack Black was playing every character in the family, like in different like fat suits and shit, and it was called the Fats.
Yeah,
And
kinda like
yeah,
a Mike Myers, like Eddie
mhm,
Murphy kinda thing with, like, the Nutty Professor, like, a lot of that
yeah,
stuff
pretty
thrown in
much, yeah.
together. Yeah.
And pretty much he's just doing these movies for drugs. But I mean, yeah, I mean, like what you said. Well,
For
I mean, this is
true.
just like it's a stacked cast, dude. I mean, I and that's another reason I appreciate it is just I think that a lot of these guys. I mean, because you have big names, you have like Matthew McConaughey, Tom Cruise, like
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. I feel like these guys really just did it because it's like they
Mm.
heard the premise of the movie and they're like, this sounds like fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
I just get that, and I'd love to see that. I've never seen the special features on the disc, but I'd love to see kind of like
Yeah.
a lot of the interviews with the actors and kind of like the production process because I'm like, I just feel like these guys just had a really fun time. That's always the vibe I got when
Mhm.
watching
Mm.
this movie, that they didn't do it for money. It was just more for shits and giggles.
Well, I think also the fact that it was so like, again, there's a lot of, like, stuff in this movie that, as we said, we they couldn't get away with it today,
Oh
like,
yeah.
with modern sensibilities, like, a lot of the jokes, like, even I mean, again, we talked about Robert Downey Jr., like, that whole character, like, they
Mhm.
most likely wouldn't be able to do that, at least not without getting, like, an incredible amount of pushback, right?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
But I
100%.
think that's what made it even at the time, it was so surprising because it was like if you were to look at this movie and not look at the actors involved,
Mhm.
I mean, the jokes are still funny, like the dialogue, like there's some really like raunchy scenes in this movie, like I said, like there's a lot of I guess some people would look at it as controversial, but like boundary pushing stuff, right?
Mhm.
But the fact that it had the cast that it did, I think made it that much more I just think it elevated it, right? Like people actually took it seriously. Like, and again, Downey Jr. being nominated, another thing that was just, I
Mind
mean,
boggling.
mind-boggling. But I guess like when you really think about his performance in the movie, I guess it does make sense why he would get nominated
Mhm.
because at the
Yeah.
time, like it was something that we hadn't really seen in a long time. But he did such a good job. Um, thinking about it in hindsight, it makes more sense. But yeah, man, I just think this movie kind of took the world by storm, to be honest. And like The Dark Knight was like so big that year.
Mhm.
You guys did a retrospective video on that, and for people listening or watching, check that out. Gabe and Chase did a discussion on that. That video is on our
Mhm.
channel as well. But getting back to that, what I was saying, The Dark Knight was just so big that summer, and it was like Dark Knight, Dark Knight, Dark Knight for everybody was talking about that movie,
Yeah.
and then Tropic Thunder came out and it was like, holy shit, like this movie is fucking this
Yeah.
movie's like hilarious. Like this is one of the best movies I think I've seen as far as comedies are concerned, like of all like ever. And
Yeah.
looking back on it now, like watching it again, like it's a classic. Like it's a
Mhm.
classic. Like it's undeniable. Like to watch a movie almost 15 years later and have it still make you laugh like just as hard, if not more or harder. It's I mean, there's no question, at least in my
Yeah.
mind.
That's
I don't know
difficult to
about you
do.
guys.
Well, I know, and Chase was talking about that too. That you said you don't like rewatching comedies for that fact.
Yeah, that's why I've only seen it once, because I just got visited it like 3 years ago. And again, it's like I said, like that scene scrambled my brain where like I really forgot a lot about it because I laughed that hard. I really can't tell you outside. I think Tom Cruise dances a little bit after that, and I remember a little bit of like the final scene.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember almost anything because I literally was sitting there on my couch for like 20 minutes in tears, not being able to see anything. I was laughing. That scene ripped me. But I just don't like to wear the jokes thin. I have things that I've seen for a long time, like Austin Powers, and I'll revisit them every couple of years, and they still have that charm. But something like that, I want to revisit, not as little as possible, but keep it nice and spacious in between rewatches where it doesn't lose its flavor and spice. And hopefully I even forget some things, so that way whenever I go into it, it's even funnier that time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I completely get it. I think there are some movies that you could rewatch and, you know, they just kind of lose their charm. But like, I think this one, for some reason, I've just seen it so many times and it's just as funny as the first time. It's just something about it. Like I think a good example, I think Superbad came out a year before this. I just checked that out because I was like, when did Superbad come out? That movie is hilarious, but I will say, like, it's not as funny as the first time you watch it. I feel like with Superbad, it's like hilarious the first viewing, and then after that, it's like, you know, you kind of get it for the most part. It's just kind of like this experience you go through. But with Tropic Thunder, I felt like you can watch that movie like 10, 20 times, and it's just still, it hits just as hard as the first time as you watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any movie, and I don't know if we're ever going to get a movie like that again. I mean, 2024, I mean, you know, the year's almost up. I don't really think we've had any standout comedies this year that I can think of off the top of my head.
I don't know about you guys. Let me ask you this question, because I was kind of thinking about that. Like in the past few years, comedies to me, I just don't think they're as marketable nowadays as they were. You know, at least like we haven't gotten like one that's like a really good one that's done well financially. Let's put it that way. Not that there haven't been comedy movies, but I don't know. I just think we're kind of in a weird place right now with comedy films, you know? I mean, they're not coming out in the frequency that they were, you know, again, 10 years ago, looking back at that time period for whatever reason. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on with the whole comedy landscape. I think some of it too is like what you said, Will, like you know, there's certain sensibilities coming into play now, and like the climate is very kind of sensitive in terms of like controversies and, you know, things you can say and can't say. And comedy's always been funny in the sense of like you're always pushing boundaries to the point where it's like not offensive, but just like you're hitting that line, right, where it's like it's funny,
right
but you're
there,
not crossing it, right? And I think that's the genius of comedy. And right now we're just in a time where it's like it's very difficult to do that, and I don't think a lot of people are willing to kind of give it a try, because I mean it's kind of risky, at least right now.
Yeah. Can we do this together? Can we screen share and watch the bridge scene that Chase is talking about? Because ever since we talked about it, I've just been wanting to watch
Put
it with
up
you
if you
guys.
can find it.
Yeah, pull it up.
Yeah, I
My
got
browser
it.
for some reason doesn't work. I think I have to have Chrome or something. Mine never works when I pull it up.
I got you.
Yeah, bridge scene is so good, man. It's just there. I don't think there's ever been anything. I mean, there's that one scene in Anchorman 1 whenever he pisses Jack Black characters off, or his character off. That one's. I think those are great comedies. I mean,
those are good ones. Yeah, the Anchorman, was it Anchorman 2 with all the Anchormen coming together, like fighting each other?
Both of them. It's in both of them.
Both of them. It happens.
But which one? Which one's the one with like Will Smith and like Kanye popping up and Harrison Ford?
Oh, that's the second one.
That's the second one. Yeah, that one. Yeah, because dead with that dude.
The first one has that one dude walking around with a grenade.
Yeah. So dumb.
Okay, let's check.
Oh, baby throw. Here we go.
Yeah, I love how it's just called Ben Stiller baby throw.
They know what's funny, man. They know what we want.
Can you guys hear this real quick?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's do it.
I was wrong! Blow the bridge!
The way he's just constantly getting him in the back.
Damn, dude. So messed up, dude.
He just throws him into oblivion, man. That's great,
God.
Man.
Yeah,
that whole scene's incredible.
That is awesome, dude.
Oh, they played it out perfectly, man.
Yeah, the entire movie is just awesome, man.
Yeah.
So much
fantastic movie. I mean, I honestly, I think when it came out, I probably gave it like a 10 out of 10. I never gave it a rating, but to me, it was like for what it's shooting for, and that's what I always rate movies on personally. Is if this movie is like actually fulfilling what it's trying to do, it's a 10 out of 10 in my book. Like it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think that's it, guys. I mean, let us know in the comments below if you have any questions about or comments about, I should say, Tropic Thunder. If there's anything we missed in terms of the retrospect or something that stands out to you about the movie, let us know down below, and let us know if there's other movies or franchises you want us to do retrospects on. We've been doing these videos kind of intermittently and going back into the past. I think it's a little bit fun just to kind of get some retrospect on these movies and how they kind of fit into our taste today. So let us know down below in the comments. And as always, we appreciate you guys for watching.
Appreciate you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
There it is.